What's going on, people, and welcome to a brand new type of top 10 today. And I said recently that I'm going to be bringing basketball content to the channel. For those of you that don't know, I grew up playing basketball quite a lot in my younger years, so I know a bit about the game and past players and stuff like that, and it's always been another sport I've been interested in. So there's going to be basketball content coming to the channel this year, and I'm going to start off with my top 10 personal all-time favourite top 10 players, and this is from players I grew up watching, not necessarily like your all-time greats, because a lot of them were before I was even born, but a lot of these I grew up seeing, and my brother was heavily into basketball, who was older than me, so I learned a lot about it through him at the time, and then obviously became a fan of it myself as I got older. So let's get into it. Top 10 all-time personal favourite NBA players of mine. I hope you enjoyed the list. I'll be interested as well if I've got any NBA fans that follow me or enjoy the sport themselves. I'll be interested to see yours in the list as well, in the comments. So leave it in the comments what your top 10 is, and I'll be interested to see that. So coming in at number 10 for me, Carmelo Anthony. Just the other day, has been traded to the Celtics from Lakers, and I remember him mostly from his time at Denver Nuggets growing up. He had that stint with Iverson there as well, and also was at New York Knicks. It wasn't that long ago where he was at the Trailblazers, where I thought he had a good partnership with McCollum and Damien Lillard. He's always been one I've enjoyed watching in terms of a jump shot, shooting from distance from the three-point line, free throws. He can dunk it as well. He can post up as well. He was a very well-rounded player, and he's always been one I've enjoyed watching. Won some Olympics as well. I'm going to be interested to see how he does at the Celtics. Obviously, they made the finals last year and fell to the Warriors in the finals, but going to a historical club such as the Celtics could be his last team before he retires. So I'm going to be interested to see how he does there. I think he'll fit in well there and be aiming to go out on a high probably and win a title before he retires. So Carmelo Anthony, number 10. Number 9, Dirk Nowitzki. That fadeaway jumper he became so well known for. Very tall. Good footwork for a tall guy. Wasn't very pacey at all, but his height got him into positions that when he were in them positions, hardly anyone could stop him, because he could spin, go in the post, do the spin, fade away, and he was so clutch when he did the fadeaway jumper that's what he became known for. Actually won a finals as well. He got one NBA title in his career with the Dallas Mavericks. Eventually got that title. It's one that I miss watching a lot. For a big guy, I enjoyed watching him. As I said, he didn't have a lot of speed, but he had a lot of good footwork for a tall guy, and just very clever in how he played, knew where to be on the floor and get buckets. So Dirk Nowitzki, number 9. Number 8, Dwayne Wade. Explosive, whether it was setting up teammates or driving to the basket himself and finishing acrobatically. Very good free throw shooter, could shoot from distance if you needed him to, but in the paint, scoring, unbelievable, and hardly anyone could stop him. One-on-one, you're really having a headache trying to stop him. Won several titles as well. So he has to make the list for me. And one that I always enjoyed watching, as I said, explosive, quick, handles, very well-rounded. Not the tallest of guys, but in terms of offence, he could do the job and do his bit on the defence if you needed him to too. So one that I miss watching a lot, and did some stuff in terms of just explosiveness. Not many people can match it. So Dwayne Wade, number 8. Number 7, Nate Robinson. Now, obviously, he's had a lot of stick the last few years after that boxing fight he had with who was it? Jake Paul, where he got knocked out, which I was surprised by at the time. But he's not a fighter, and I still don't think Jake Paul's a fighter, to be honest. So, but yeah, in terms of basketball player, he had that dunk contest where he did the kryptonite stuff with Dwight Howard at the time, which was, I always remember, jumping over his shoulders and all that. But a guy that could really heat up in games and just take over a game and get buckets for his team, or he could set his teammates up. But he used to go on these hot runs where he'd get a ton of points in a game, and then he might die off in the next game, but it wouldn't take long again for him to come back in a game and get a load of buckets again. And he had that star factor for me. He was very entertaining, very charismatic. For such a small guy, again, similar to Wade, that explosiveness. He could shoot from distance. And he's one of the most underrated players in NBA history for me. for what he did, and he doesn't always get spoken about, and people now remember him in the wrong light for getting knocked out in a boxing ring. So I remember him as a great basketball player that he was, one that I miss watching for his explosiveness, his entertainment, his assists he could get. He could dunk it as well for such a small guy. Very impressive, very athletic, and a guy that I'll miss watching. So Nate Robinson, number 7. Number 6, the late great Kobe Bryant. Rest in peace. I think he's the closest we've got to Jordan in terms of the mentality, that dog you've got to have inside you, the willingness to win, the grit, the determination, sacrificing. He wouldn't go out partying even if they just won the NBA title. He'd be back in the gym straight away while his teammates are partying. Just different, and what you need to be that great. And Kobe was one of them. And he could easily have been lower on the list in terms of top 3 really, but I had to include some other cats that I really like too. But Kobe Bryant, for what he did, I know inspired a generation. A lot of people speak of Kobe in the same terms of Michael Jordan, in terms of he was their Michael Jordan for their era, and I can completely understand why. He wouldn't mind taking the ball. In fact, he looked for the ball in times where the majority of players shy away from it and hide. He wasn't afraid to miss that shot, and he rarely did miss the shot because he had that much confidence and self-belief, because he knew he put in the work in training that his teammates wouldn't even do. That he'd be like, why would I pass you when I know the work I'm doing that you're not doing? And he would win them championships single-handedly at times, just off of that. And it's hard to match that. I think he's the closest we've had to Jordan in terms of his mindset, the grittiness he had, that dog inside him, the single-mindedness that you need, but he could also incorporate his teammates and make his teammates better. Even though they weren't putting in the work he was putting in, he could still bring them up to a certain level and win rings and win championships. So Kobe Bryant, it's a shame how it ended for him. Very sad how it went out for him and his daughter and everyone involved. But his mark and the legacy he's left will never be forgotten. Rest in peace, Kobe. Thank you for the memories. Thank you for being a part of my childhood and one of my favourite players. Kobe Bryant, number 6. Number 5, Mugsy Bogues. Not a lot of people talk about him. The smallest ever NBA player that made it to that level, and you've got to give props just on that alone. I recently watched a documentary on him, fantastic documentary, really showing that you can succeed through the face of adversity. It's a really good watch, and I always heard about him through my brother when I was growing up, but I don't remember watching him at the time like I watched some of the others. But seeing him in that documentary the other day, it was like watching something ahead of its time. And not only did he break the mould in terms of being the smallest ever NBA player still to this day to make it to that level, but he was so good that he had to be that good to make it as well. The handles he had, the speed, looks like he was in fast forward mode all the time. The steals he would get on the ball, counters the team he was up against, because he was so quick that he would just steal the ball off them. And athletic, explosive. Talk about explosiveness, one of the best ever. But the speed of the guy, he looks like he's in a video game, and he's at a different speed to everyone else. Even though he was the smallest on the court, he was the fastest, the most switched on. And I think he deserved to be in the team that won championships. It's a shame he never did. But he's got one of the best ever records at like college level, or high school. Like he's like, it goes through it in the documentary. So he's got a great history. I think he broke down doors for other players, and he's still the smallest to ever make it to that level. And not only make it, but stand out at that level as well, despite not winning a championship. That says a lot. That says a whole lot. Yeah, if you haven't seen that documentary, please go and watch it. I think it's called I believe it's called. But just search it up. You'll find it. It's a great watch. Mugsy Bogues, respect to you, sir. Number 5. Number 4, a current player that I consider the best ever shooter of a ball, whether from distance or even inside the three-point line, because he's just efficient. Stefan Curry. The guy, he's actually my favourite player nowadays of this current era. But his long-distance shooting from the three-point line, half court, behind half court, full court. Pick a spot on the court and he'll make it with complete confidence. And we have that confidence in him because he does it time after time after time. He's won countless championships already. He's still going. He's just won it again in the last season of the NBA. Even with injuries, he's coming back and putting up numbers again. He's the greatest shooter of a ball for me I've ever seen. As I said, clutch. You don't want the ball in anyone else's hands when there's a title on the line. Period. If it's Steph Curry, it's money. And as I said, I can't say enough about him. He's the best shooter of a ball I've ever seen. He looks like he's in a video game and in his own stratosphere. He looks like he's doing his own thing and he's alien to the players around him, even though he's got great teammates. That it takes a team to win championships. Let's not pretend like he's not carrying that team with what he does, because it's simple as that. Great free throw record as well, like percentage. And he brings his teammates into it if he needs to. But the confidence, the self-belief, the dedication, the work, unbelievable. He's obviously got a twin brother that plays in the league as well, but I don't think anyone's at the heights of Stephen Curry. And that's why he has to be this low on the list for me. Number 4, I'm giving you your flowers. Number 3, one that I've just watched another documentary on recently, because I remember his time at Chicago Bulls more than anything. And he's had a good few years here and there throughout since the Bulls, but not quite to that level, even though he upped his percentage in scoring for the Timberwolves at the time. Now with the New York Knicks, Derrick Rose. That word again, explosiveness, had it in trumps. I don't think I've ever seen a more explosive player in terms of his athletic ability, especially when he was at the Bulls. You won't see that as much nowadays because he's had a ton of injury problems, but you can still see it in patches and glimpses. And he's probably going to retire pretty soon. But them days at Chicago Bulls, bringing them as far as he did into the playoffs and stuff since Jordan, even though they didn't go on to win it, you can't forget that, in my opinion. He doesn't get spoken about enough for me because people go talk about the off-court stuff that happened with him a lot and downplay him, doubted him when he had all the injuries and he come back for the Timberwolves. They went on a run up to scoring percentage with the Timberwolves, had a career high as well with them, even better than he did at the Bulls in terms of percentage of scoring. And he keeps another one like Bogues that keeps breaking down barriers and people doubt him and he comes back. It's just a shame that he's never been on a team that's won a championship, because I think he's by far good enough if he can stay fit and avoid the injuries. He's easily good enough for me, and it's just a shame that his career has been riddled with injuries. But by far, easily talented enough to be on a team that has won a championship, and it's just eluded him throughout his career, which is a really big shame because he deserves it for me. Derrick Rose, I salute you. In at number 2, the answer. AI, Allen Iverson. Another one that should have won a championship, at least one. The amount of times he made all-star teams, the low centre of gravity, the speed, the handles, arguably the best ever handles of a point guard, let alone player, or even any position you want. Iverson, unbelievable. Looked like he was in a video game himself. Who remembers NBA Street? The guy could have been playing in and one, like street level, because he was that talented in terms of just the skills, the handles, the speed, the self-confidence, and he was tough. Another one that was a small guy, but he could hold his own against the likes of a Shaquille O'Neal. Not in terms of in the post and getting up and blocking shots, but he had that fight in him. He'd fight them massive players like a Shaquille O'Neal and dive and get the ball on the floor. They wouldn't be willing to do that. And he'd be willing to cut his arms up and everything, put his body on the line to keep the ball in bounds, and then go up the other end and get his assists, get alley-oops, could dunk it for a guy his size as well if he needed to. I remember his time at the Nuggets with Carmelo Anthony, as I said earlier. I loved their partnership at the time. But took the 76ers to a final that they ultimately ended up losing against Kobe and Shaquille. But single-handedly, I think, pretty much took that team to that final, even though they didn't end up winning it. He's another guy that could have easily been on a team that won a championship because he was easily good enough to hold his own in a team like that and win a championship. So for me, one of the guys that I miss watching the most. Yes, he probably could have had a better career if he'd have been more focused, and we all know that it's only training, basically, what he said, and it's just training. We're talking about practice. Maybe if he was a bit more focused, he might have got a bit closer to winning a title, but that he still did things and left a a legacy, I feel, that still goes on today. The arm sleeves that you see the players wearing, the tattoos, the image. He brought fashion to the league that players are now kind of ruining because of the stuff they're wearing. But he was the benchmark for that. He started that. And not only just basketball, but like I said, culturally in the league and bringing eyes to the league and making it more worldwide. I think he's one of the best ever to do it. Thoroughly respected on the street level as well. I wish he would have won a championship because he deserved it. And one of my all-time favourites. And I love that clip of him crossing over Jordan as well at the time. Loved him. I've actually got a vest somewhere of his brand as well. So, and he obviously had his own sneaker deal with Reebok. So, loved the guy. Wish he could have won a championship. I miss watching him play a lot. Allen Iverson, AI the answer, number 2. And at number 1, I can't have anyone else. Your airness, Michael Jordan. Even though he played quite a few of his years before I was even born, I grew up knowing that my brother had posters up all around the room of him. The film, like the Space Jam film, as a youngster, I learnt about him through that as well. Then I went and got older and watched clips of him and got to see a few of his games like on telly or whatever. Unbelievable. The mindset, no one matches it. People go on like LeBron's the best now. I'm not having it. Just he's had a longer career. He's played longer. His minutes and points and everything's going to catch up naturally. Still not beating the GOAT, who is Michael Jordan. You're not. You can throw all the stats at me you want. No one that I've seen comes close to this guy. And they've had more years than him. They might have better stats. They might have better records than him. And I still don't consider them better than him. What does that tell you? And I'm not the only one that feels like that. You can't do that without a reason behind it. The mindset, the inner dog he had, the competitiveness, how he would tease players and make stuff up. If you haven't seen The Last Dance, please go and watch it. I'm going to go rewatch it soon. I've seen it once already. I'm going to go rewatch it. Because he would make stuff up to come up against people to give him that fire for him to get to that level he could get to. Because he got bored. It was too easy for him. And he had to challenge himself to go even higher, to get motivated for games against opponents that he didn't have a reason to. He'd make up things like they insulted his mum or something, just to get that fire in him, to go and embarrass him. Who else does that? I don't see no one doing that. No one. No LeBron. No one today. I don't see it. I like the players of today, but no one matches up to this guy. I'm not having it. And for me, he's the best ever. 7 finals, 7 wins. LeBron has been in 10 finals and he's lost 6 of them. And people consider him even number 2. If you're going to consider him number 2, I would ask how, when you've lost that many finals. Even with your stats to back you up, you've lost 6 finals out of 10. So you can't be considered number 1 anyway. For me, hence LeBron's not even in my top 10 all-time favourites. Yes, it's a preference, a personal choice. He might make, if I did like a top 75 like they did recently, he would probably get in that. But he's not anywhere near the top echelon of basketball players for me. I respect him, but I don't agree with a lot of people's opinions that he's the GOAT. And he's had longevity more than Jordan did. He's played longer. And it's naturally going to catch up and go past him because he played longer. You're still, if they go one-on-one, Jordan in his prime against LeBron in his prime, Jordan's eating his heart out. He's eating his heart and spitting it out and going, is that all you got? I'm telling you. Michael Jordan is my number 1 all-time greatest player and favourite player. It's a preference, but it's also facts. People can come up with all the stats they want. He is the greatest. That is my all-time favourite top 10 NBA players, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If I've got any NBA fans following, let me know your list in the comments and who your number 1 is and your backstory of how you got involved in basketball. If you're a fan, if you play, let me know. Because basketball, unfortunately, in this country has never been big, and it gets to me because I've got a reminiscence with it. I've got a nostalgia with it because I grew up doing it and playing against men when I was a little boy and being okay, to be honest. I'm pretty good. I'm not, I've never had the skills, but I'm a good 3-point shooter. I can shoot from distance and I've got a pretty good jump shot. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you play or you've grown up with it and maybe if you fell out of love with it over the last few years or whatever. But if you liked it in the 90s or whatever, let me know because I don't see enough of it in England and it's a shame. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys, before I go. 2,000 subscribers by the 1st of December, but we set standards. We find where the bar is and we go past it. I want to hit it before the 1st of December. Make sure you're subscribing. Make sure the notifications are switched on. And I'll catch you in the next one.